Go. So we're gonna go ahead and strip through our trigger area here, and there's our message fading in. It's gonna fade in and out in a total of 5 seconds. So that was 2.5 seconds in and 2.5 seconds out. And there it goes. That's our message fading in and fading out. Hey guys, it's Tackle Freak here, and welcome to episode 47 of my custom story creation tutorial for Amnesia Rebirth. And today we're going to be talking about the ImGui. Specifically, we'll be printing out messages on screen. So we're going to talk about the ImGui. The ImGui pretty much is the helper function where we can show stuff on the GUI, so we can show stuff on the player's screen. Things like, pictures, buttons, crosshairs, images. It could be anything, really, anything having to do with showing something to the player graphically that's not actually in the world of the game, just showing it on screen, is handled by the ImGui. So we're gonna start talking about it. We're gonna do some basic things like just showing messages on screen. I wanted to do things like showing messages a while ago, way back near the beginning of the series, because I knew it was something relatively easy to do in the Dark Descent, but it is a bit more advanced to do in Rebirth. So I've been holding off on it for a while. So we're finally gonna talk about how we can show messages and format it and stuff. It's actually much more detailed, much more stuff you can do with it, but then it is also a little bit more complicated. So let's go ahead and start talking about that. So first thing we want to do, if we look here in our main, we have our starting room script here for our starting room map here, and if we look in our script file here, we have these methods, these functions that run when the game starts, when the game sets up, when you enter the level, and these things just run on their own essentially by the game engine. But there is one we don't have here. We have other ones like on leave, on player killed, on permafail, on respawn, all of this stuff. But there is one we don't have here, and you'll need this to actually show anything on screen, and that is the onGui function. So we're gonna write void onGui, no caps, just GUI, and then we'll put a parentheses here, and then inside of here we're gonna put float AF time step. We haven't talked about time steps yet, so I won't mention too much about what we're going to do with this just yet. But if you use time steps in your level, you can go ahead and grab the time step straight from the onGui when you're running anything in here. And now that we have this here, the onGui function is what controls showing things on screen, and the onGui function is running constantly. So as soon as the player loads into the game, the onGui is already repeating. It's just running in circles, running any code that's in here. So any graphics or any messages or anything that you want to run in here. So now that we have this here, let's go ahead and let's just print out a plain message, nothing crazy, just kind of show you guys how we are going to do it. So first thing we want to do is we're going to make a label. So we're going to say ImGui label data, and we're going to put space, and now we're going to go ahead and give it a name. So this is the type of variable that we're creating, just like float, just like int. This one is a ImGui label data, and we're going to give it a name for the variable, and we're going to call it, let's just call it label. Of course you can call it whatever you want. I'm calling it label here, and then we'll go ahead and add some new spaces here. And now what we're going to do, so that we can show the message, we're going to say ImGui. So these are all the helper functions for the ImGui. We're going to put underscore, and we're going to say set trans category. And for now, what we're going to do is we'll just put 2 quotation marks blank. If you watched my last episode, I did do a little snippet of this. So you might recognize this, but we're just going to do a little blank section right here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say ImGui underscore do label ext. We're going to do the extended version here because in the extended version we actually pass in a label object here, which is what we're creating. So we're going to do the do label ext. And now for the string, what we're going to do is we're going to put whatever string we want to print out on screen here. So again, this is just a very basic version. I kind of want to show you guys how you guys can do a very basic version of this. So what we're going to do is just put in anything here. Let's just put, we'll put hello, and we'll put exclamation point or something. And then we got to go on with the rest of these values here. So now we're going to print out hello, and we're going to need to put in our label. The label has no data in it because we didn't do anything to it, but we will be modifying it in a little bit here. But for now, let's just put label. And then what we're going to do is we're going to hit comma space. And now we're going to go ahead and say ImGui underscore NRM pause. And then what we need to put here is a vector. So what we're going to do is we're going to go 0, 0, and let's just put, the last one doesn't matter here. We'll just put 10. And then we'll move on to the next line. I'll explain that in a moment, what that is. And we're actually going to do a few examples with it. So we're going to do that. We're going to leave that as it is for now. We're going to put comma space. And we're going to say ImGui. And we're going to do underscore NRM size. And now we need a vector 2f for this one. So what we're going to do is we're going to put 1.0f, comma 1.0f. So just one. And again, I'm going to explain all of these in a moment. For now, I just want to write them out so you have them here. And again, in the description, there'll be a Pastebin to all the functions and stuff we used in today's episode. So again, just go ahead and use this here, and we're going to go ahead and open up our game and see what we see. So I pulled up my game, and right away the onGui function starts working right away. You can see right in the corner here in the left middle here, you see hello. And if we activate, if we unpause and we walk around, you can see that the message stays there throughout this whole thing. So so like I said, the onGui function is running continuously. As soon as I opened my game, it started applying those changes to the onGui function, and it's just running again continuously and stuff. So now let's go ahead and go back here and let's start messing around with some of these numbers. I want to explain to you guys what these values here do. So pretty much what these values do here, this is an XYZ and this is an XY here. So the Z here in this case, it doesn't matter at all. This is a 2D image. This is a 2D image we're putting on the screen. So the Z does not apply here. We just need to apply. It just takes a vector 3f. So we need to provide an X, Y, and a Z. The important ones here are the 2 zeros here. So what these are numbers from 0 to 1, and it indicates where on the screen you want to put the values. So let's say we change the X to 0.5. So let's open up our game, and then if you look on the center of the screen here, you'll see it says hello, the message we have, and it's set up directly in the center because we put 0.5. So if I hit escape, you can see it's right next to the crosshair because the crosshair is actually dead center on screen. So you can see it's lined up exactly in the center, and that's because we put 0.5. Of course, it doesn't line it up with the middle of the text. I'll show you guys how we're going to do that a little bit later in the video. But it lines up the front of the text to the center of the screen, or to the center of that X position because we put 0.5. If we do put 0.5, if we do 0.5 for, let's say, the Y, then we probably will end up right here. So let's go ahead and just kind of test it out. So I'm going to go ahead and update that to 0.5. So now the Y is 0.5. So let's go ahead and open up the game again. And okay, so it went halfway down the screen. So we probably want 0.25 there if we wanted to go halfway down the screen there. So we'll do 0.25 there, and we'll come back here, and you can just kind of play around with it. So now you can see that we have it here halfway down the screen, so you can kind of play around with it. I believe you can also put negative numbers. So if we do we come back here and we do negative 0.25 here, we open up the game here, you can see that it's now up here, halfway up to this part here. So you can move that around. But I'm gonna go back to the script now, but you can actually we actually won't even be doing this since we're using a label here. We can specify some of that information in the label, and then if we want to just kind of fine tune it a little bit, we can use this here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna change this back to we'll change this back to just where it was kind of on the center of the screen. And now let's talk about the NRM size here. So the NRM size is actually like the working area for the GUI. So when you put this message, it's when you indicate a value here, it indicates how big the size of your working area is. So if you so right now we have it set to 1 and 1, which means the whole screen is used as your scale for printing stuff on. But let's say we only wanted to print on like half the screen, or a smaller portion of the screen. So we're gonna do 0.5, and again, the F's aren't exactly required here, so you don't have to put the F here, but it's a good habit to get into. Sometimes I just like to quickly just put 0.5. So we'll do that, 0.5, and we'll open up here. And I think I forgot the comma somewhere, or we've got it right here, so we'll put 0.5 here, or not 0.5, we put 0, I think that's what we wanted here. So we'll put 0 there, we'll open it back up so we don't get an error, and let's go ahead and come back here. All right, and now we're back, and now you can see that the hello is up here now. So it shrunk the working size of the screen here, and now when we set since we shrunk the working size of the screen halfway, then now it lines it up here. So it pretty much, yeah, it's just like the area that you want the GUI, the label, to be printed on the screen. In general, you probably could just leave it at 1 and then tweak it from there using the position here. But you're feel free to play around with it. In general, when I use this, I usually just leave these 1, 1, and then just kind of play around with it using this and the other method we're going to talk about shortly. So that explains how this do label ext kind of works here. But now let's talk about how we can run this, how we can execute this code whenever we want. So as you can see, as soon as we load up the game, this message is printing out, which is obviously not what we want. We want it to print out whenever we want to show the message, right? Let's say the player steps in a trigger area or something. We want the message to show. So we don't want this just sitting in here in our onGUI function. So what we want to do here is actually create a global variable. So we'll create a global variable out here. It's going to be a Boolean function, so it's going to be a true or false statement. And the name of it, let's call it show message. Of course, you can call it whatever you want. You don't have to call it show message. I'm going to call it show message, but if it was relevant to your story, show, if there's like a message that you want to show the player, like run or something like that, you could put like scare message 1, scare message 2, whatever is applicable to your story. So we'll go ahead and do that. We do still have to talk about this trans category, but first I want to show this. Or actually, yeah, let's just finish with this. So let's say we come up here and enter our custom story, and you guys already know, if you've watched previous episodes, I have this trigger area right here, but for those that might not know, I have a trigger area here that has a collide callback here. So when the player interacts with it, it executes code, and that code is the player trigger 1 code, which is let's find it here, which is right here. So on collide player trigger 1, so that's where this is the code that executes when we step in there. All state 1 means that the player entered the area, and then else means that the player left the area. And we return false because we want to remove the trigger area from here when the player runs the code in here for the first time. So We don't care about what happens when the player leaves the area. We care about what happens when he enters. And we're going to go ahead and make some space here. All this is doing right now is just disabling the players running, or enabling the players running. We're going to execute our own code here today. And what we're going to do is, let's say when the player enters this trigger area, we want to go ahead and show this message here. So what we're going to do is we're going to say show message equals true. So we do want to show the message now. So in here now, this, we have the bool show message, and what we're going to do now is we're going to set this to default be false. So it will not show this message from the start of the game until this trigger function here, that when the player collides with, sets it to be true. When it's set to be true, then we will show the message. But how do we tell the GUI function now to show the message? So that's pretty simple. What we're going to do is we're going to do an if statement, and we're going to do our parentheses and our open curly braces, and we're going to say if show message. So if it's true, we will show whatever is in here, which is going to be this here. So we're going to take this out, we're going to paste it in here, and we're going to hit tab and tab just to keep things clean here. And now if show message is true, we will show this message. So by default, again, our global variable for show message is set to false. When we step in this trigger area here, we will set it to true, which means the onGUI function will go ahead and show the message. And we will also be showing how to fade out the message in a little bit too, so we know when to remove it. But this will show the message. If you didn't want it fading out or anything, you can just put a timer in here. We've talked about timers in the past. You can put a timer in here, and after a set amount of time, you can go ahead and remove the message. We will talk more on the onGUI function and like timers within the onGUI function. But for now, you can just use a regular timer to go ahead and remove the message. Or like we're going to show in today's episode, we'll fade it away. So now that we have this here, let's go ahead and test it out. Let's open this up. So you can see the hello message has gone away. It's no longer here. What I'm going to do is going to hit F5 on my keyboard to restart my game here. So I've restarted the game. Again, we've got no message. We're going to go ahead and step into the trigger area here, and boom, there is our message. It says hello. So there shows our message now, and the player can see the message and everything. And so that's how you would trigger the message to show up whenever you wanted. So now let's talk about how we can use text, not direct text like this. Like here we have like the literal text written in here. But let's say we wanted to pull it out from our lang file. So we have our English.lang file. If you guys seen the episodes on hints and items, you guys might already know how the English.lang, but if you don't know, it's in your config file under your lang folder in the English.lang. If you don't have one, go ahead and create it. But here it is. This is my English.lang file here. I know I have a lot of other open stuff here, but you can just ignore it. We have our main script and we have our English.lang. Here I already have a category for messages, but I will just go ahead and delete this so that I can show you guys how I did it. So I'll put this in the description, in the Pastebin as well. But if you already have this in your custom story, no need to do anything. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just copy one of these categories that I already have. I'm going to copy the one for hints since there's only one thing in here. And we're going to go ahead and hit space here, and we're going to put in here our category. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and give it a name. So I'm just going to call it messages. You can call it whatever you want. You don't have to call it messages, but I'm going to call it messages. And then within here, we're going to keep all our messages that we ever want to print out in our custom story. So we got to give our first message a name. So let's just go ahead and call it message_1. And let's just, give it whatever. Let's just say you will not win, or will not live, or something. I don't know. Say you will not live. Doesn't really matter so much. Here is just for an example, but of course, if you had something you had to show yourself, you should go ahead and specify that. So there it is. And if you ever have like another message, just go ahead and copy this entry name here, paste it here, and then you can do like message 2. you will not live, you know, again, or whatever. So that's our second message there. So now that we have a category in here, if we go back here, you'll see the ImGui trans category, so the translation category. So as you can see, the category name is right here. We called ours messages. So we're gonna go ahead and copy that, and we're gonna paste that in here. So we're gonna call it messages. So the category for this label is gonna be messages. And now in here, instead of saying, of putting the message that we want to print out, we can go ahead and put whatever the name of the entry is in our English.lang file. So if we go back here, we have message 1, message 2. We can copy message 1, for example. We can paste it in there. And now what's going to happen is, instead of just printing the words message 1, since we set a category for messages here, it's going to actually print whatever is in the message 1 entry. So instead of printing this, it's just going to print this in here. So let's go ahead and test it out. Let's save the game here. Let's save our script here, and I will go ahead and come back. And I am currently in the area, but let me just refresh out here, and we'll step into the area, and there it is. You will not live. That's our message that we went ahead and put in there, and that works. And again, if we like change this to message 2 instead, because we put another one, it will update, and you'll see instead, you will not live again. So that's our second message. So you can select whatever messages you want from your English.lang file. So that's pretty cool stuff. We'll change this back to 1 right now, but it doesn't really matter. We'll leave it at 2 because there's a bit more text for message 2. And then now that we have that, I'm going to go ahead and change this NRM position back to 0. So I want it to be back on the left hand side of the screen, because we're going to go ahead and now start talking about formatting. So how can we format our messages? How can we, like, you know, change the color? How can we format where it's aligned? How can we format the size? Like, how do we do that kind of stuff? So all of that is done using this label here. Thus far, we've been doing nothing with it. It's just been a plain label here, whatever the default values are for it. That's what we've been using. But we want to actually change that now. So let's go ahead and actually start messing around with that. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a new space. And the first thing I want to do, let's align the font without using the NRM position or NRM size here. So what we're going to do is we're going to say label dot. We're calling the actual class. We have to put dot. This is not a helper function. So we'll put dot, and then we're going to say M font align. So this will specify how the label should be aligned. So what we're going to do is we're going to say equals space, and we're going to say E, and we're going to say font align, and that'll be align. So we'll put that, and then we'll put underscore, and I'll hit control space here to bring up more options here. And then we have the options that they give us. We have left, we have center, we have right. So let's go ahead and select center here. Let's see what happens when we do E font align center. And let's go ahead and start up the game again. So we're going to go ahead and open it up. And in a second, you'll see that it says you will not live again. But now it is centered directly on the center of the screen. So you see the crosshair is right there in between the words. It is centered directly in the center of the screen. So we've aligned it perfectly in the center of the screen. Of course, you can change that to something else. You can change that to right, for example, and now it should be pressed up against the right of the screen. So if we open that up, you can see that it says you will not live again over here on the right. So again, it is E font align right, and you can again erase this and just press Control space on your keyboard, and you can see the last options. I think the last enum would just pick whatever the last value was for it or something. I haven't actually tested that, so I'm not 100% sure. But you can go ahead and test that yourself and see what it does. But we're gonna leave it aligned at the center. I like the way that looks. So that's how you can align the screen. And if you align it like center and you start editing this here, now this will actually adjust to where this font is right now. So since we centered it, if we put 0.5 here, so I guess we could try it here. We'll put 0.5 and we'll relaunch again here, you can see it will readjust the screen to where the label is, but it won't actually put it halfway between the center and the right side here. It will still pull the whole screen over to the left here, or it will still pull, like, it'll pretend that the screen has moved over right here, starting right here, and it goes further out. So you would have to change your NRM position according to how you align this here. So that is an important note there. So we're gonna go ahead and just change that back to 0 and leave it here. In general, most people will probably print the messages in the center or something like that, but just like I showed in my last episode, I did have specific values set for these, so I could put it at the bottom right. So feel free to play around with those numbers and work out whatever works best for you and your custom story. So now let's talk about the size. How can we change the size of our text? So we're going to say label.m font, and we're going to put just m fonts, and then we're going to do .mv, and you can change other things about it here too, but I'll show you guys what we're going to do. We're going to say mv size, and we're going to say equals, and now we need a c vector 2f for this. So we're going to say c vector 2f here, and we're going to put parentheses, and we'll also put our semicolon just so we don't forget it. And now we need, it's a vector 2f, so we need an x and a y, and the x and the y is the actual size of the font. Let's try 100. So it's going to be 100 wide and 50 tall. So let's go ahead and save that and check out what that looks like. And yeah, it looks pretty gnarly there. It's stretched out pretty wide here, but of course you can adjust that however you want. Probably keep the values consistent, so we could probably do like a 50-50 and see what that looks like. Yeah, it looks pretty good, pretty large and everything here. Probably could stretch it out a little bit more though, in my opinion, but again, you can play around, you can play with the size, you can make them bigger, smaller, whatever you guys prefer. So that's how you will actually change the size of your font. Nothing really crazy there. So now let's talk about how we can change color. How do we change color of our values here? So we're going to say label. We're going to say .m color base, and we're going to say equals, and we'll say c color. So now we need to specify the color, and we're going to just first show you guys how you can specify default colors. So if you put C color, you'll get these default colors here. You have blue, you have red, you have green, you have white, and these are the only ones that are built into to the API for here. But we can actually specify more colors than that. Now we'll cover that in a moment here. But let's just say we wanted red, so we'll do C color red, and we'll go ahead and save that up. So label that M color base equals C color red. We need to provide a color in here, don't forget. But this will provide us a color. So let's go ahead and save it up and open it up. So here goes, starting it up. And here you can see You Will Not Live Again is written in red now. So you can change the color in that way. So red's a pretty good creepy-ish color and stuff, so that's pretty good. But let's say we want to do a little bit more than just change it to a default color. What we'll do, I'm going to comment this out just so you guys have it on screen here. But let's say we wanted to do a specific color we wanted. So we're going to do label, and we're going to do M color base. And we're going to go ahead and remember, when M color base, it says it needs to match pattern C color. So we need a C color here to be provided. When we did C color red here, that's what was there. But we want to create our own one now. So the way we're going to do it is we're going to create our own C color class with our own colors. So we've done this actually in the advanced lighting episode. So if you guys check that one out, you'll guys see how I did that there. I think I went a bit more detailed than what I'm going to do today, but I'm going to roughly do about the same thing here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to say C color, and I'm going to put parentheses, and I'm going to go ahead and put a semicolon here to close it out. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and bring up my calculator here. We're going to need this in a moment here, because when we provide the color, we need to provide the colors in a value from 0 to 1 because it has to be normalized. And we talked about this again in that advanced lighting episode. But first, let's find whatever colors we want to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open up this colorspire.com website. It's just like the first thing that came up when I looked up for like a color website or something. There might be one that normalizes the values for you, but this is just one of the first ones I found here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select some color. Purple wasn't one of those colors that we had, so maybe let's do like a purplish color. So we'll do like this purple color here. These, if you're not familiar with RGB, with the RGB like color scheme here, pretty much 255 everything is white, and then 0 everything is 0, and then the numbers in between pretty much decide what the colors are here. So for this specific color of purple, the values are 145, 0, and 255. And our C color takes 3 values. It takes an R, a G, and a B. But it takes them normalized. So it takes it from a value from 0 to 1. These are range from 0 to 255. So we need to normalize these numbers. So how do we do that? So that's actually fairly easy. Again, there might be a website that already does this for you, but I'm going to just show you guys how to do it because I think it's important to know how to do it. For red is 145. So what we're going to do is write 145, and that's out of a possible 255. So we're going to divide that by 255. So that gives us a value of 0.568. So what we're going to do is we're going to put 568 for this first value here. So we're going to say 0.568, comma, space, and now that was our R. Now we need our G and our B. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing for the other ones. 0 divided by 255 is just going to be 0. So we know that's going to be 0. And then blue is 255. So again, same thing applies for this one. 255 divided by 255 is just going to be 1. So there's nothing to do there. So it's going to be 0 and 1 for the last two values here. So we'll put 0, and then we're going to put comma, space, 1. And we're going to go ahead and hit save here. So now that we have that, this is going to be that same color that we had on the website here, this purplish color. We normalized it down to be a value between 0 and 1 instead of a value between 0 and 255. So again, if you pick a specific color, these might end up being something else like, 26 or something like that. But in our case, it ended up being a red of this, and then 0 of this, and then this is just 0, and this is just 1 when we normalized it. So now let's go ahead and open up our game, see what that looks like. So here it goes. And you can see it says "You will not live again" in purple, in that purple color that we chose on the website. So that's pretty good stuff. If you wanted like a bolder color, you can actually double these values. You can actually double these values and you get a bolder color, or triple or quadruple, whatever you want. For example, if I set this to be, okay, like this is 0.568, let's just quadruple it. And let's say that's 2. Quadruple of 0 is still 0. Quadruple of 4 is about 4. So let's go ahead and say that. This is not exactly the color. I'm just trying to give you guys an example here. But let's go ahead and check out what this looks like. And here it goes. It's going to be a bit lighter in purple, but you can see it's a bolder font here because we did such a higher number. So once you can go past 1, it's just going to be significantly bolder. The actual font. So if you did want like a bolder font, I suppose you can increase these numbers. But if you want to keep them normal, I would keep them between 0 and 1 and normalize them. So I'm going to go ahead and just undo this here and set it back to what I had it before. So that's how you can set a custom color for your font if you wanted a specific color. And now let's talk about alpha. There is a third value you can provide, a fourth value you can provide with color, and that's the alpha value. And the alpha value, again, for those that don't know what alpha is when it comes to color, alpha is how opaque a color is. It indicates what the opacity is of the actual color or the label or whatever applies to in this case. In this case, alpha will be how transparent it is. So what we can do, for example, let's go ahead and do label, and we'll do dot, and we'll do M color base. Same thing, we'll do M color base, but instead of setting it equal to anything, we're gonna change some of its values. So you can see the RGB is in here. If you wanted to just change one of these colors instead of all of them, you can just hit, dot R equals or dot B equals or whatever it is. These are floats. All four of them are floats, but what we're interested about is A here, which is alpha, and we hit A and we hit equals. Let's just go ahead and do 1.0 F, and this actually, let's put the semicolon here. This actually does nothing. And the reason why is because an alpha of 1 means it is it is non-transparent, it is fully darkened in. So if we do start up our game, our words are just going to look like they're supposed to. It's just going to say however it is. But let's say we wanted it to be transparent, the text. So let's set this to be 0.25 here. So now it's 75% more transparent than it was before, because we set it to be 0.25. So let's start up our game again, and if we have a look at it again, you can see that now it's actually pretty transparent. You can actually see through it and see some of the stuff behind it here. So that can change the transparency by changing the alpha there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to comment this out again here, because we're actually going to do something with this now. So we're done talking about the formatting of the text here. What we're going to do now is we're going to do a little example of how we can fade in a message and fade it out. That is something I was asked by a member of our Discord. Again, the link is in the description if you're interested, to fade in a message and then fade it out over a set amount of time. So I gave an example. There's definitely more ways to do this, but I kind of just want to wrap up the episode with this because I think it's pretty cool, and I feel like a lot of people would want to do this. But at this point, if you're not interested in fading in a message and fading it out, you can go ahead and just start playing around with this and doing whatever you want to do. Remember, you can just set a timer in here and do that. So let's go ahead and start this. So first thing I want to do is set a time that's going to indicate how long the message should fade in and out. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and put that inside of the show message function here. We're going to put that at the top right here. We're going to say float, and we're going to say message, and we're going to say fade in and out time. So this is the time from the moment the fade starts to the fade ending. So we're going to say 0.0 F. So it'll fade in for 2.5 seconds and fade out for 2.5 seconds. That's what the 5 is here, but you can obviously change this to be whatever you want here. We did talk about configs in the last episode, so you can even put this as a config for how long this message should fade in and out if you wanted to. Something pretty creative like that. It's pretty cool. But now let's talk about how we can set this to fade in and out. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna change the M color base here. So we're gonna go ahead and go here. We're gonna change just the alpha. Remember, the alpha is what controls the transparency here. So we want it to slowly fade in and out. So we're slowly gonna be changing this transparency value from 0 to 1, which means it's it's non-transparent, all the way back to being non-transparent again. So we're going to go ahead and hit equals. And there's actually a function that actually is very useful here. That's the ImGui _ fade oscillate color function. And this what this will do is, if you read some of the description here, it says it will fade in a color back and forth between two different color values. So in our case, we don't want to actually change the two colors. What we want to change is just the alpha. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back here, I'm going to come back here and we're going to go ahead and actually we'll select the function first, and we're going to put quotation marks here. And first we need to just kind of give it a name. I'm just going to say label. This is if you wanted to control this after the fact, kind of like we do with timers. But you're just going to put label to match whatever we called the label data here. And then now we need the first color and the second color. So what I'm going to use is I'm going to go ahead and just take this color here, and the color that we had set, or that we already decided on. You can save this to a variable if you'd like. You can do like C color, and then you just put like my color, and then say equals, and then paste this here. And then instead of saying this, you can just say my color, something like that. And this here would work. But I'm not going to do that. Of course, you can feel free to do that yourself if you'd like. But I'm just going to go ahead and just straight up copy this color. I'll actually go ahead and remove this line here too, where I set the color here, because we're already going to set it in here. So we have it here now, but we want to specify one more value in the C color function, which is going to be the alpha. And the alpha again is transparency. So initially we want the message to not be visible on screen because we're going to fade it in. So we're going to put this to be 0, and this will make it so that it is not visible on screen when we start showing our message, and it will slowly make its way up to being completely visible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and copy this line. I'm going to put comma space here, and I'm just going to paste this. So this is the second color, the color we want it to reach, the color we want it to eventually reach. So and again, we're not changing the color itself. We just want to change the alpha, the transparency. So we're going to set this to 1. So we eventually want it to reach a transparency of 1. Of course, if you did want to change the colors, have some kind of like disco-like looking effect or something, you could put 2 colors. But I only care about the transparency in this case. So we're going from the same color to the same color, but we're going to different alpha and alpha numbers here, from 0 to 1, from completely transparent to fully visible. And what we'll do is we're going to hit comma space here, and then what we're going to do here is add one more line here, and we need to provide how it's going to do that change, how it's going to move from point A to point B. And we have kind of touched upon this here. You have to say easing, and you have to put underscore, and then you actually have to put what mathematical function you want to use to go from point A to point B. Exponentially, quadratic, sine. It is more math thing. We're just going to go linear, just straight from A to B. No oscillations, no weird oscillations, just from A to B, straight there. But if you did want it to fade in faster towards the end, you could do an exponential function instead. But in our case, that's what it is. So this value here will actually give us an entire color. This will give us a whole C color value here. So if we type it in again, we say ImGui underscore fade oscillator here. You can see it returns a C color. It returns a whole entire color. And if we're only changing the A here, we can do we have to do .a because we only want the alpha variable from this. Of course, we don't even have to do it like this. We could also, I'll put it here and I'll comment it out so you guys can see. We can also just set the whole color base here. We can put, again, if we didn't want to touch the other colors, we would want to do something like this. But since we already set the colors in here, it doesn't really matter. We can go ahead and get rid of the A here and get rid of the .a here. And then what this will do, this will change the whole label's color to be the whole color that we generated here using this oscillator. So in our case, both of these actually produce the same effect. We can use either one of these. I'm just interested in the alpha again, so I have the .a. But if you were actually changing between 2 different colors here and alphas as well, you can go ahead and do it this way instead. So just an important note, if you were going to do like some party lights type of message or something like that, you want to use this whole function here rather than specify the .a here for alpha. So just a good note there. I'll leave it there on screen for you guys to look at if you need it. But with that, now every time we run this message, we will get whatever the value is in our oscillator here. There's just one thing we have to do, and that is actually stop the color once we reach it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down here, and we want to stop once this will oscillate between the two, but it'll keep doing it forever. So go from non-visible to non-visible, and then back to visible, and keep repeating that continuously. We don't want that. We want it to stop as soon as it reaches an alpha of 0. So what that means is we're going to go all the way to the bottom here, and what we're going to do is when the alpha reaches 0, we want to go ahead and disable our message here. So what we're going to say is we're going to say if, we're going to do parentheses, and we're going to say label.m color base.a equals, and we're going to say 0. So when the color, the alpha, when the alpha from the color base of this label is equal to 0, we want to go ahead and do show message equals false, and close that out with a semicolon. You guys might have not seen this formatting, but this is just a quicker way to do an if statement here. This is the equivalent of saying, this pretty much. We could do like that, and then we'll do this here. So it's the same thing as doing this, but it's just a more shortened version of this. So we can just do this to take up less space here. So we do that, and this will actually work as well. So just for those that might not be aware of this formatting here. So yep, so when alpha is equal to 0, we're going to go ahead and disable the message. So remember, when we start this message, the oscillator is not going to be at 0. It's going to be at whatever it is in the oscillator. And when it does eventually reach 0, we will stop the message altogether. So we'll disable this, and this will be set to false now, and it won't actually show this message. So let's go ahead and start up our game here, and check it out. So here we are, and as you can see, we have no message. We're gonna go ahead and hit F5 here to restart our game. And now we're going to go ahead and walk through the trigger area. And remember, we set the time to be 5 seconds. So we're going to walk in here, and it flashed pretty quickly here. It flashed pretty quickly because we didn't actually put the time that it's supposed to go in and out. I actually missed it here. So there's one value I missed here. You have to put message fade in, so our message fade in and out time here. So obviously we're not specifying that, so we'll paste this here, so you guys can see that there. We'll paste that in here as well. That was actually my bad. I forgot to put in the fade in time here. So again, put in the fade in and out time, and this will fade in for 5 seconds and fade out in 5 seconds. So now let's go ahead and go back into our game. Let me step out of this area here, and let's go ahead and restart here. So now that we have that, let's go ahead and walk through and see what it looks like. So there it is. It fades in, and then it's gonna go ahead and fade out in a few seconds here. And there it goes. So it faded in and it faded out. I didn't set the color up here, so the color wasn't set. It was just set to white. So if we were to like remove this again, let's do it one more time just so we can see it with our color. We'll set this to be that color. Of course, we can do it this way. Actually, let's do it the other way, just because I think it'd be a little cooler. We'll use this other function here, but I wanted to use it the way that we did it here. We could just, leave this commented out and set this here to be active. So this would produce the same result. This here with this active and this here will produce the same result as just this one line of code here. So we will actually do the other way here. So we'll do it like that. We'll do save, and we'll go ahead and start up our game again. And let's go ahead and back up here, and we'll restart and we'll check it out again. So here it goes. So we're gonna go ahead and step through our trigger area here, and there's our message fading in. It's gonna fade in and out in a total of 5 seconds. So that was 2.5 seconds in and 2.5 seconds out. And there it goes. That's our message fading in and fading out. So pretty cool stuff. one last quick little thing I wanted to talk about, just another probably like 30 seconds. You guys don't need to have all this text just sitting in here in your ImGui function. You can actually put this in a function outside of here. The devs do this a lot because if you have, like, let's say 10 messages, you're going to have this much code 10 times inside of your ImGui function. Probably not something you want to do. You can actually put this all outside in a function. So for example, let's make our own function here. We've done this for a few things in the past, but we can go ahead and do it here again. What we're going to do is we're going to say void, and we're going to say, we're going to give our function name. We're going to say message, let's say this is message1, put parentheses, and we'll do our curly braces and open it up here. So this is message1. This is just what we're going to call it. This is your function name. It doesn't have to be anything specific. You can say message2, message3, whatever you'd like. We're not passing in any variables, and it's going to be void because we're not going to return anything out of this function. We just want to run whatever's inside of it. And then what we're going to do is we're literally just going to take all this code here. We're going to cut it. I'm going to paste it in here. And instead, inside of our ImGui function, we can just put message1 parentheses semicolon and done. So our ImGui function is just a simple little message1 line, and you don't have to have all that code inside of your ImGui function. So if we go back here and and we refresh our custom story, it will work completely identical to your function here. So here it is, and it shows the message just like it did before. Nothing will change here. And it will fade out just like before as well. So that's a good idea to do, especially if you're going to have a lot of messages in your custom story, or if you want to hold multiple messages in the same function. You can also control it like that too. And again, you don't have to keep this function up here. You can put this all the way at the bottom of your custom story somewhere down here, so that it's not in your way and you don't have to see it all the time. It's all the way down here or whatever. So that's just another useful hint for you guys. But honestly, when it comes to ImGui stuff, there's so much we can do with ImGui. We can show pictures, messages. We can show messages, pictures, everything. There was another thing I wanted to talk about today, but we didn't really have time, and I was actually putting a background to these labels. Maybe something like ImGui will probably take multiple episodes because it's a very advanced topic. But yeah, definitely more episodes. This video has been pretty long. Let's wrap it up here, guys. There'll be definitely multiple parts to this ImGui stuff in the future. But for now, this will give you guys your first taste of the ImGui function and the kind of things you can do with it. So it's pretty cool stuff. So with that, guys, leave a like on the video if you like the video. Leave a comment if you got anything on your mind. And if you're not already subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next episode, guys. Have a good one. Bye.